Welcome to Painting with Coffee. Vocabulary we will be using for this lesson: tone. That is the intensity of light and dark in your color. Depth. That's what makes your drawing look three-dimensional and more interesting. We need to add darker tones to create depth. Texture. That's the way something feels when you touch it or looks. We're going to use coffee grounds for texture. And lastly is our newly coined word, kitchen paint. Whatever colorful food or drink items you have permission to use for this project. And here is a quick example of a very beautiful Earth Day coffee painting using tones of coffee. Notice how the outlines around the continents are darker. And here's an example of color tones from light to dark. We are going to use two kinds of coffee. Instant coffee is preferable if you have it, and that works best to make your darker tones. Coffee grounds work best for texture. In order to get started, you're going to have to make your coffee paint with a light, medium, and dark tone. You're going to add just a tiny bit of coffee for your light, a medium amount for your medium tone, and a lot of coffee and very little water for your dark. These are my colors that I have made out of ground coffee and instant coffee. To point out one thing too, with the instant coffee, if you let it sit overnight uncovered, it thickens up into a really, really nice dark tone. Do you know why it thickens up? That's right. The water evaporates, and leaving behind more dense residue. Today's science connection is how to grow coffee. before we start, let's look at some of the kitchen paint projects included in your assignment. Project 1 is a simple outline of an object. You will probably have to use not only the darker color for your outline, but you may have to go over it once it dries. To get the depth and the definition of these animals, you will have to use many layers as well. Project 3 is to create as many different tones using one type of kitchen paint. There's more kinds of kitchen paint. We'll find out later. Spills and splatters is similar to a project we did a few years ago called color mapping. Where we are going to be making different shapes from drops of coffee, different tones, different layers, and when it's dry, we will outline the shapes that have been created with a black marker or a pen or pencil. This one took the shape of a tree. Another fun project is splatter creatures. You turn tiny little splatters of coffee into enchanting and whimsical creatures and people. Project 6 is a mountainscape using different tones for the different mountains. I'm going to first draw an outline using those wobbly lines, and each mountain is going to be painted with a different tint or tone from light to dark. Wait till it dries if you need to layer on darker colors. You're first going to paint a wobbly ground line and then the outline of a simple house above this line. I'm going to add lots of building additions, make them different sizes and heights, maybe add a few chimneys. Then you're going to paint a tree. You want to make that tree look older and scarier, so make thick and wobbly lines for the trunk and thin lines for the branches. And you will have to go over with a second layer of paint to get this dark definition. Add windows and doors. Some could be crooked and hanging off of their hinges. After all, this is a haunted house. Then you're going to fill in the roof and the tree trunk with the darkest brown color. Again, you may need to use several layers. Let them dry in between. All right, if you want to add texture, if you're using ground coffee, you can use some of the grinds to make texture on your ground. Then you're going to fill in the house using a lighter tone, but be very careful not to smudge the lines of the house, of the door, or the window. You want to keep that clear, straight line definition so you can see your house and all the features. You're going to paint the sky the very lightest color you have in your palette. You can even water down your color a little if it's too dark. And you can put a cup over your circle so you keep it nice and white. Again, be careful not to smudge any of the lines of the house or the roof. So, what do you do if you do not have coffee? You can use condiments from your kitchen. What are condiments? Answer: kitchen paints. So you can use mustard, ketchup, Tabasco sauce, maple syrup, soy sauce. You want to use something with color to it, but be very careful of the smells that you will be using. They may not be the most pleasant in combination. I recommend using a pre-drawn picture and trying to color in using the different color condiments you can find. Or you can just use one and recreate anything you want using basic contour lines. Have fun and enjoy.